Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Tuesday and the patch notes have been posted, which means it's time for the top 5 changes of patch 11.8. Now I'll be showing you guys what the biggest or most impactful changes are of this week's patch, and letting you know what you can be looking forward to in the coming weeks. 11.8 isn't a very big patch, but it does have a little bit of something for everybody, and does address the elephant in the room in the form of Yorick. But we're not going to start there. Instead, our number 5 change is going to be the champion releasing with this patch in the form of Gwen, the Hallowed Seamstress. Now, I feel like Gwen is not going to be a tremendously impactful champion upon release. I just don't think that skirmishers in general really are super great on day one unless their numbers are super overtuned, and I don't feel like that's the case with Gwen at all. But at the very least, she is going to have a very interesting play pattern. She's going to have a very interesting play style, and I do feel like Gwen will be the kind of champion to keep your eye on as a couple of weeks go by, as players sort of learn her and master her, because skirmishers tend to have that very good curve that really accelerates as you put in more time on the champ. So definitely going to be a fun one to play though, so looking forward to seeing how Gwen does. But let's not wait any longer. Let's go ahead and hop down and talk about Yorick. Now, obviously, Yorick got turbo buffed on the last patch with the ability to just do a ton of upfront burst damage with his E. Essentially, that was the only cooldown he needed. As long as he hit you with the E, the Graves would come to life, the Mistwalkers would jump on you, do 200% of their damage right off the bat, and any other damage Yorick got after that point is just gravy, and just really, really made Yorick an absolute powerhouse in the top lane. Now, Riot aren't totally reverting those changes, as they don't want to immediately make Yorick be a bad champion again, because he kind of was before. But they are definitely reining in some of the free burst damage that Yorick can deal. E is no longer giving the doubled bonus damage on the first attack. Instead, it just says that a marked champion will take 40% increased damage from the first 8 attacks that Mistwalkers deal to them. So it does mean that Mistwalkers will jump on them immediately and start attacking them, but it does mean that they have to stay in combat for a small period of time in order to get that full amount of damage that Yorick wants, which does mean that, especially given how slow they are, some champions can just straight up run away from the Mistwalkers and prevent them from getting any more than that first auto attack off. So it really does allow Yorick players to tone down on their damage a little bit. They're not going to be bursting as hard, but it means that if Yoricks are able to land an E into a W, for example, they'll still get essentially the same amount of benefit that they got from their previous round of changes. Additionally, the Maiden is now no longer prioritized over her Mistwalkers. The Mistwalkers will get prioritized first, which means the Maiden is going to be able to stay alive a little bit longer in both split push situations and when she's actually hanging with Yorick. So that's a very nice quality of life buff change. Generally speaking, Yorick's power is slightly lower than where it was before, but he is still massively, massively improved from where he was before, so you can still be looking forward to Yorick in your future games. Hopping on down to talk about items here real quick. A couple of support mythics are getting shifted around in order to make it so that Moonstone Renewer isn't the only one that supports can buy, or that enchanters can buy, I should say, and instead trying to open up Shirelia's to make it a little bit more of an option for these enchanters to either have some fancy footwork to avoid initiations or to avoid plays, or to accelerate a team into a team fight or something along those lines. Moonstone Renewer's Starlit Grace heal has been reduced to a flat 60 at all levels, which is technically a buff in the early stages of the game. As soon as you get this item, it is technically healing for more than it would be ordinarily, but the heal amplification, or the Starlit Grace heal, is only being improved by the mythic passive, so for every item you complete afterwards, the heal will get better. This does mean that it will end up at the same place that it was beforehand in terms of the heal, but since it's based on items rather than levels, it's technically more impactful because it does mean that you can get to a full build long before you get to level 18 and have the ability to get that full heal off anyway, so I do quite like where this is at. Additionally, you get the amplification on Starlit Grace's heal replaced with just bonus healing and shielding power. So this will not only work on the Starlit Grace heal itself, but also on any other heals or shields that your champion may have. So Soraka's and Janna's are definitely a big fan of this particular change. It's still very good at what it does, but it also now has competition in the form of Shirelia's Battle Song, which no longer has the empowered on the damage, but instead empowering or protecting another allied champion gives both allies movement speed, and this item now grants ability haste instead of the movement speed. So Shirelia's is going to be a very good item for dealing with high skill shot team compositions that are looking to fish for picks with things like Thresh Hooks or Morgana Bindings, because the bonus movement speed should allow champions to avoid those or to maneuver out of the way of an incoming enemy initiation with something like a Hecarim or a Rammus, which we'll touch on here in a second. So generally, I feel like both these items are going to be very effective at being built on enchanters, but I do feel like Moonstone Renewer has a little bit of an edge on Shirley's Battle Song, but I do feel like they've sort of been opened up and that both are sort of viable options at this point. And since we mentioned him, let's go ahead and talk about Rammus here at number 2. Rammus has gotten his sort of mini gameplay update in the same vein as the Xin Zhao changes I touched on in a previous video. Rammus is sort of getting modernized to act more like a Vanguard would in the sort of current state of League of Legends with a brand new ultimate, Soaring Slam. Now he has the ability to dash a short distance and slam down. He knocks up enemies in the area of effect and then also creates a sort of constant slowing effect as with his old ultimate, the Tremors, that stacks up as you stay in the area of effect. If he's casting Powerball while he's doing it, he gets a significantly, that's when he gets the knockup and he's able to do a bunch of Powerball damage to enemies in the AoE as well. What this means is that Rammus can use Powerball, rocket up to enemy champions, use a Soaring Slam to close the last of the gap, knock them up, get the Frenzing taunt off. By the time the taunt is done with, they have been slowed tremendously by the Tremors left behind by Soaring Slam. It really allows Rammus to make some big flashy plays. Now, the rest of his kit has had some small tweaks in order to compensate for some of the additional power he's getting from this ultimate, because make no mistake, guys, Soaring Slam is significantly stronger than his old ultimate was. So he did have some places to lose power, but generally speaking, Rammus will behave a lot more like a traditional Vanguard, and I can't wait to see how he plays out in game. Finally, for the number 1 change on this week's patch, it is going to be Rumble. Now, Rumble has sort of been in an interesting spot where he's been more viable mid lane than top lane because he just has been able to bully these mid lane champions, and he can't really deal with some of the tankier members that play top. So Riot are trying to make it so that he is slightly weaker in the mid lane and slightly stronger in the top lane, but he's still viable in both. As a result, his magic resistances have been pretty dramatically reduced here, so he will be more vulnerable to mid lane harass, but in exchange, his top lane is actually quite good. Electro Harpoon now reduces the target's magic resistance by up to 30% if he hits both of the harpoons in quick succession, which then means if he did that and then into a flame spitter that he overheats on, his overheat has actually gotten buffed as well because he gains 50% attack speed, he does percent max health damage on each auto attack. He's really going to be able to brawl with some tanks on the top side, so I would expect to see Rumble back in a big way top lane thanks to these changes, as he does kind of punish some of the big beefy boys that tend to inhabit that lane. But that is actually going to be it for the top 5 changes in patch 11.8, guys. Like I said, it's a bit of a smaller patch, but definitely enough for me to talk about here. So let me know which changes you're most excited for down in the comment section below. Obviously, I think we're all excited to see Gwen, but I'm also happy that Yorick is getting reined in a little bit, as he was a little obnoxious over the last couple of weeks. But let me know which changes you guys are most excited for down in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days like today as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.